We're starting challah. Kaya, do you see it? So my daughter Kaya is manning the computer, the phone for Facebook. So if you have any questions, Kaya's going to read them and let me know. Right, Kaya? Okay. Welcome. We are going to make challah. So there's a challah recipe that I make all the time, and it's called the Monday Morning Challah. It's on a website. It's a group of women in Australia who make challah, I think, various recipes, but their challah recipe is just amazing. It's one bowl. It's very easy. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy making it, and mostly that's the challah recipe I make. But a friend of mine sent me a recipe from Stewart, and she sent me a picture of her challah that she made, and it came out beautiful. So I thought, okay, let's try something new. Okay, so let's start with a few things. First of all, I preheated the oven to 375. Actually, don't preheat your oven because we're doing something a little differently. It takes about an hour and a half, about 2 hours to rise this dough. So from start to finish. So don't preheat your oven. I preheated it because I actually made a batch this morning, and I want to show you how to braid it and how to brush it and all of that. So my oven is preheated. But I am going to turn this. I got a new one, so this should work better. I am going to preheat this because we're going to melt margarine. So let's talk about the ingredients first to make sure you have them all, and then the utensils. Remember, we talked about a mise en place where you want to have everything set up before you start so that in the middle of your cooking or baking you're not running and trying to find different things. You have everything, and you know you don't run out of an ingredient in the middle of a recipe, especially now where you really can't Instacart and it's even hard to just run to a market. I wouldn't say hard because it's not hard, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. Okay, so let's go through the ingredients. What I did is I actually wrote down the ingredients, so if you miss what I said, you can see it visually. Kaya, can they see it? Okay, so let's start with number one is 2 tablespoons of margarine. We're making this recipe parve, non-dairy, and so that you can eat it with your meat meal. In general, there is a tradition that if you make challah or bread, you try to make parve and non-dairy because it's hard to know if a bread is dairy or not, and then and one of the laws of kosher. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we're back. Better than ever. Okay, it's good? No? Do you see me? Could you move it down?
No, I don't know how to. I'll have to hold it.
Is it like this? Do you see me? Do you see the ingredients? Okay. So, here's what we're doing. Let's get the ingredients. Oh, so we were talking about kosher laws. And one of the kosher laws is not to mix meat and milk. So to prevent that, we try to always make challah and breads and rolls parve. If you choose to make it dairy, then you make it a little bit different. So you shape it a little bit different, or you'll add, so years ago for my mother's birthday, I wanted to try this dairy bread, and so I actually baked it in a basket, and I actually added a little beet juice to make it red. So before you touched it, you were like, oh, what is this? Oh, it's different. Oh, it's the dairy bread. So it was very visually clear that that was dairy bread, and I wouldn't eat it with slices of turkey. So this challah is non-dairy. So I'm using margarine. The best margarine I find is the Fleischmann's OU Parve, and it's unsalted. That's the one that I always buy. I really like it. It melts beautifully. It doesn't have a strong flavor, and anytime you use margarine or butter, you always use unsalted so that you can control the salt. Anytime you use something that already has salt, it limits how much leeway you have using your salt, and I like to salt my food according to what I'm comfortable using it and not having something that's pre-salted. Okay, so let's start. The first thing is 2 tablespoons of melted Fleischmann's margarine. And I melted it right before we started. I just put it in the little saucepan and I melted it. It took 30 seconds. Okay, Next, so after the margarine, next is 1/3 cup of sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. I don't know why yeast is so difficult to find. Anybody who needs yeast, please let me know. I've been leaving some little packets of yeast outside my house for people to pick up. So just text me that you need yeast the next time we do challah, and I'm going to try to get you yeast. It's just flour and yeast. It's like things go in waves. Toilet paper, I don't know what the other stuff was, maybe water, tissues, now yeast and flour. So it's sort of like this cool roller coaster ride. So, all right, so we did the sugar and the yeast, a tablespoon of honey. Try to use honey that's not very strongly flavored. I really like this honey from Trader Joe's. It's non-flavored honey, and it has a honeycomb in it. It's so pretty. Just really handsome. Anyway, I like that. Next is a tablespoon of salt, kosher salt. If you're using Diamond kosher salt, do a tablespoon. If you're using Morton's kosher salt, maybe do 3/4 of a tablespoon, because Morton's tends to be saltier. Okay, 1/2 cup of water. And I just used water. We have some sort of live water. So you can use bottled water, whatever you want. And it should just be room temperature. A cup of soy milk. Okay, so here's the soy milk that I really like. It's the West soy. I really, really like this soy milk. I get it either in vanilla or non-flavored, but I always get the unsweetened. Again, you don't need to buy things that have added sugar. If you need sugar, add a little bit of sugar on your own, so this way you know exactly how much sugar you're adding. Did we say everything? 4 eggs. And you should have a glass bowl so that you can check the eggs. Again, with kosher law, you want to make sure there's no blood, because blood is not kosher. Anytime I mention eggs, I always say that every time we make eggs, we're elevating our kitchen, and we're elevating the food, and we're elevating our time and space. Okay, next. Hi, can they see over here? You're moving it? Oh, you're so good. Better for bread flour. By the way, I don't know if they still have it, but Smart & Final sells big 25, maybe even 50-pound bags. Really inexpensive. Look for the Better for Bread one, which is high gluten flour. So that's that. And I like to keep my flour in jars, containers, and make sure to label them so you know which is whole wheat, because a lot of the whole wheat is like white whole wheat flour, regular, gluten. This way, high gluten, this way you know exactly what you're taking down from the shelf. Okay, so let's talk about utensils. Utensils, I said that we needed 1 bowl, but we actually need 2 bowls. So I'll give you a second, you can go grab a second bowl. By the way, these are amazing. I don't know how many quarts they are. I got them at Restaurant Depot. I don't know if they're open, you can go online. They are excellent. I have dozens of them. I just love them. I use them for cooking, I use them for baking, I use them for mixing, and I use them for challah. And I really love them. So anyway, my 2 bowls. A measuring cup. I have a 1/2 measuring cup because you want to put the flour in 1/2 cup by 1/2 cup. We talked about this previously, that when you're working with challah, add less flour first, and then slowly keep adding more flour. Because you can always add more flour, but once you put the flour in, you can't take it out. And you want the challah dough to be just right. And sometimes when there's too much flour, the challah gets too dense. Okay, next, a wooden spoon. Always challah wooden spoon. By the way, I think you can get these at the Dollar Tree. I got them at Restaurant Depot, but again, I have a lot of these. I use them for everything. They're great for sauteing and for mixing and for challah. Okay, 2 baking trays. Mine have seen a lot of love. I have 2 with parchment paper. I actually cut the parchment paper to fit for size, so I have 2. Okay, so I think we have everything. Oh, we'll talk toppings now, but you're not going to use the toppings right now because you're going to be watching me do the second step after the challah has risen. You'll do it as soon as your challah is ready. Okay, so what did I take? I have my sesame seeds, and I like to use the ones that are pre-toasted. It just gives a little bit more oomph to the food, like some more umami. Chocolate chips, everything but the bagel. That's my favorite for sure. And then coarse salt. So like a Maldon salt, a coarse sea salt, anything that has a really yummy, flaky flavor. Okay. For the topping of your challah, you're going to use this. You're going to take, all right, I did this last night because I wanted to be more organized for today, and I put it in the fridge. Let me tell you what I did. There's an interesting tradition, I think it's like Kabbalistic, where if you leave an open egg in the fridge overnight, you also leave a piece of shell. Something about the energy of an open egg overnight, so I just left a little piece of shell in my egg. Inside is one egg yolk, a tablespoon of water, and then we'll mix it. So in Martha Stewart's recipe, she says to use a sieve and to pour it through the sieve. I think I'm going to skip that. I don't mind if it's a thicker egg topping. I do it all the time, and it comes out delicious. But just if you want to trade, if you're a purist and you want to stay true to the recipe, you can do that. And we're going to use that later. I just wanted to give you all of the ingredients for when you're going to do that part. Okay, let's start. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the yeast. We always start with the yeast because the yeast takes a little bit of time to rise. The yeast is what gives the challah that delicious fluffiness. So, you know, matzah doesn't have yeast, and there's quite a difference between matzah and challah. So challah is that the big eerie holes inside the delicious roll or challah. That's from the yeast. So get a small bowl. I don't know if I mentioned that you need a small bowl. Small bowl. Get a small bowl. Pour your yeast in. It's 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. And add your water. So this is 1/2 cup of water. Pour it in. Okay. And to activate it a little, to kind of feed the yeast, you add just a little bit of sugar. So I added a little bit of sugar. And then I'm going to take a whisk. This is a really cool whisk. And I'm just going to, not too much, but just kind of wake it up a little bit from its slumber in the refrigerator. I keep my yeast actually in the freezer. Keep it either in the refrigerator or the freezer. It just gives it a longer shelf life. And yeast does die. It does expire. I don't think you have to look at the expiration date if you kept it in the fridge or freezer, but yeast does not last forever. And if you join it with water and sugar, and you see that it doesn't start activating, then it's not alive, and so don't use it. Okay, my yeast is doing its thing, God willing, that it should be alive. I'm gonna take my melted margarine, and I'm actually going to, here's a brush. By the way, a great brush for when you brush the challah is a painter's brush. So actually this one, yeah, this is just a regular painter's brush. So obviously one that you never used for paint, but it's great to use. So I am just brushing. So when I usually make the challah, I just put a little oil around. But here I'm following the recipe, and I'm using, thank you Chaya, that was excellent. My son Mendel took over a little bit, so Chaya and Mendel together are helping me. So brush your bowl with margarine and then put it on the side. Okay, we're going to use this brush again, so I'm going to just kind of slip it in here. And save the rest of your margarine. So kind of put the margarine over here. We're going to use it again. Meanwhile, my yeast is waking up. Okay, this has been on for a while. Let's see. I'm going to lower this a little bit. Okay. Take your 1 stick of margarine. And, oh, did I mention the stick of margarine? I mentioned the 2, I don't remember. I mentioned the 2 tablespoons of margarine, but you also need a stick of margarine. What I like about this recipe is a lot of times they'll give you 1 ingredient and they'll say divide it, and you sometimes forget to divide it. So here, she very specifically writes it in 2 places, so you know that it's 2 separate, it's considered like 2 separate ingredients. I left it out for a few hours. I woke up earlier and I just took it out of the fridge. If it's a cold night, just take it out and let it sit overnight out on the counter. You want it to be room temperature. Generally, when you're baking or cooking, unless you're making pie shells where you want, or any kind of phyllo dough or anything like that, where you want the dough to be cold. Otherwise, make sure it's room temperature, especially when you're making cakes or you're making icings. Okay, so I cut it into little cubes. Whoa.
It's too hot.
Take it off a little bit. I guess I could do a homemade facial if I want. That would work out well, now that I can't really go anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to sort of let it melt. So what I'm doing is I'm letting this melt. Okay, see how easy? Because it's room temperature. This morning I melted the cold margarine, and it took much longer. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 1 cup of soy milk to the margarine. I know this is a really cool recipe. It's not the usual way I make challah, but I feel like if now's not the time to try something new, when it is. Okay.
Give a shout out to Rachel Abelski's birthday.
Oh,
She's
by
watching.
the way,
She's watching.
Rachel Abelski, my sister-in-law, love you so much. It's your birthday. Happy, happy birthday. Only good things. Actually, my sister-in-law, Rachel, is an amazing challah baker. She makes pretty much the best challah I've ever tasted. Happy birthday. Okay. Let's mix this. So, this looks good. It's all melted. I'm going to turn this off because it's a lot more powerful than I thought. I think it's off. Yes. Okay. Now take your second bowl, your second metal bowl. Pour this in. Okay. Pour this in. And while it's still hot, this is so cool, pour in the sugar so that the sugar gets dissolved. So that was a 1/3 of a cup sugar minus a little bit that I put into the yeast. My salt, again, my salt is the kosher salt, so it has a little bit of a gritty taste. This will absorb it and melt it. And my honey, my 1 tablespoon of honey. Okay, these are amazing. Everybody should have a few of them. This one is really my favorite. I think I got this at Challah. I love this one. It's, first of all, my new thing is that it should always be 1 piece. These are 2 pieces, but see how it gets dark from the moisture? So it's not my favorite, but I love the shape and the size. Small ones, you should have all different sizes, but I love these, and this one, my favorite. I pretty much use it all the time. Okay, that was like a commercial break. All right, my honey, a tablespoon of honey. We'll stick it in. Again, use the non-flavored, so it shouldn't say like any of those flower honeys, any of the citrus honeys. It should sort of just be non-flavored, and again, I really love this one. By the way, honey that's non-flavored does not need a kosher symbol. So all unflavored honey is kosher because they all come from the same source. Okay, so I am mixing my, what did we put in? We put in honey, we put in sugar and we put in salt. So I'm sort of letting it mix. Oh, someone's at the door. I love that even though we're in quarantine, my doorbell rings constantly. So we're never bored, Baruch Hashem, thank God. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is it's very happy. You kind of want it to be a little bit cool now that it absorbed the sugar and the salt and the honey. Honey also, if you're using honey in a recipe, you like to follow it with warm water so that it melts and it kind of spreads in the recipe. Bye. Hey, John, how are you? I'm doing my challah baking. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so now we're going to put it, you know, you don't want it to be too hot because you don't want to coddle the eggs. And you also don't want to burn the yeast. So what I think I'm going to do, hold on for 1 second. I'm just going to take some ice. I'm sort of just going to rub it around the bottom to kind of give it a little bit of coolness. It doesn't need to get very cold. It has to get under 110. But look how it's melting the ice. So you know that you want it to kind of get under 110 degrees. You just don't want to coddle the eggs. You don't want them to become, wow, works really well. I don't know if the palms of my hands are that hot. I think it's the bowl. Okay, all right. By the way, these cutting boards are amazing. I think I talk about it every single time. I want to give credit where credit is due. I really love these. I have a bunch of colors and I use them for various things, like green I use for vegetables so I don't want cross-contamination. Red I use for raw meats and raw fish. I have various ones. White I use for cheese, so then I know the difference between my dairy and my meat. But regardless, I really like big ones. So they come in all sorts of colors, and I just designated each one for a specific color. If you want to know where I get it, text me and I'll look online and try to remember. But I love them. I literally, and then after a while when I see they kind of, like after like a few years when they kind of get crummy looking, I dispose of them and I buy new ones. They're really a lifesaver in the kitchen. Okay, so I think we're ready. So I think what we're going to do is add the yeast. So take one of your trusty spoons. Look how it got. Look, it's creamy. It's literally creamy. And I'm going to pour it in. Okay. I'm going to sort of scrape it out. See, when you use a small spatula, it sort of gets into all the little crevices. Okay. And then sort of just mix it a little bit. If you have a whisk, you can whisk it. I actually do have a whisk, I just use it, but it's fine. And then, let's do the eggs. So the eggs, let's do the eggs one at a time. And I think I'm gonna use, where did I put my whisk? I think I'm gonna use my whisk. I used it with a wooden spoon. Martha says to use it with a wooden spoon to break the egg, but it took a little bit more time than it needed to. So I'm gonna use my trusty whisk. Okay, here's how you check for kosher. You just crack it, and you look back and forth. Almost as if you're separating your egg yolk from your egg white. Okay, now I'm putting it in. Kind of whisk it. The idea is you want to break up the egg yolk and the egg white so you don't have pieces. Okay, next, again. Pour it in. Okay. Next. See what we're doing? We're taking just a regular Friday morning and we're making it holy. We're making challah for Shabbat. We're checking our eggs. We're thinking about God. We're bringing Him into our everyday life, which is really all God wants. He says, I want a relationship with you. I want to feel close to you. And you know how I can have a relationship and feel close? If you just bring me along in your everyday life. Not just when you go to synagogue, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, to buy, but every day, on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday. I want to have an everyday relationship with you. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so I broke up the egg. This looks really nice. Okay. So far what I have in here, this is really an amazing whisk. I forget how much I like it. Okay. So let's talk about what I have. By the way, you should really have a tea towel or a dish towel when you're working. It's just so much easier to keep your hands clean and dry. Okay, so far we have, let's go through and make sure we have all the ingredients in here. We have the margarine, and we have the soy milk, and we have the yeast, and we have the water, and we have the sugar, and we have the honey. I like that you use the sugar and honey for sweetness. And we have the salt. Salt is for flavor. Must put in salt. And if you want to sneak in a little bit more than a tablespoon, I'm sure it will be fine. I like my challah a little bit salty, but that's my thing. Okay, so now we're ready for the flour. See how easy this recipe is? I really love this recipe. Okay, so here's my bread flour. Take your 1/2 cup scoop. Here's where you're gonna have to use body English. This is gonna be like, it's great for, if anyone who wants to exercise, it's great for upper body, upper arms. Add in 1/2 cup, and then whisk. Use your wooden spoon. Now you wanna use your wooden spoon. And kind of break up the clumps of the flour in your bowl. Okay, and now we're gonna go with another 1/2 cup. Okay, you have to kind of keep in mind how many cups you're using. You'll kind of be able to see when the dough is ready, but now I use 1 cup. I always forget, I lose concentration. You can have like a paper and a pen and write it if you're like me. Okay, so this was 1 cup. See, it's getting kind of lumpy, but don't worry, it's not gonna stay like that. As you add more flour, the weight of the flour is gonna help break up the clumps. Okay, and don't worry about flattening the cup. You don't have to do this because again, we're controlling the flour. So what did I do? How many cups did I have? Did I say 2 cups?
No, this is.
This is gonna be the 2nd cup. Oh, I told you, this is what happens to me every time. So here's another 1/2 cup. Okay. So I'm assuming this is this I put in 1.5 cups, but I'm gonna not just trust my calculations, I'm also gonna trust my eyes. When you're cooking and baking, really, you have to use your 5 senses. They're the best telltale signs. Your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your touch. Okay. So I think that was 2 cups already. Let's do another 1/2 cup. Already it's getting like a slurry. So it's still easy now to mix. See how it's so easy to mix still? Wait, give it a little bit of time. If you have a designated helper, they can help whisk it. Any growing gardeners or Academy of the Arts kids, this is perfect. This is so fun. I miss you guys terribly. Okay. Next. I forgot. What are we up to? All right, we'll keep going.
We just did
This is 3rd? Maybe we're up to the 3rd cup. So we're already getting, look how beautiful.
Yeah, we're up to the 3rd cup.
3rd?
Yeah.
Okay. 3rd cup. Try to kind of brush the sides with your spoon to get all the flour. Next.
No, this is.
This is my 3rd cup.
Yeah.
This is now my 3rd cup. Thank you, Kaya. Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. Oh, my hands are starting to get tired. Okay, so what was that, 3 cups?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is now your.
Now we're getting to our 4th. I feel like this is probably
no, this
more.
This is your 3rd cup.
Did maybe the 5th cup?
This
So
is your.
yeah, I feel like this might be the 5th.
No,
You want,
Mom,
no? You want to get to
So the
about
third
6,
cup.
usually
That's
it's
still the
about
third
6
cup.
cups of flour. But look how it's already getting
Well, it's still
Um,
the third cup.
more doughy. But you need it to be a solid dough. Oh,
Fourth cup.
okay, so now another half a cup. And see why we do half a cup at a time? Because this way we can kind of gauge how much more we need. So now I'm going to start, I think I could still incorporate this, but I am literally at, oh, look. Oh, it's going. Okay, so it doesn't need much more flour. So what I'm going to do now is, now that it got into almost forming a loose dough, I'm going to add some flour to the bottom of my, again, never too much, again, because you cannot take the flour off. Okay, I'm going to keep my weight around, and now I'm going to scoop all of this dough out. It's still way too loose to form. By the way, I think this challah is going to taste more brioche-like, which right after Pesach last week, my husband got these little brioche rolls, I think at the Lee's Bakery on Pico. Amazing. So I think this is going to be more like a brioche. Okay, let's talk about what I'm doing. It's a little too loose to knead, so I'm sort of just folding in the flour. But look how beautiful this dough is. My goodness. Okay, still too loose, but I'm being kind of judicious with how much flour I put in because, ooh, maybe a little messy. I just got some dough in my flour, not so smart. But I don't want to get my dough too dense. So, but I'm feeling like this is beautiful. Oh, trick. In order to keep your cutting board from moving, just put a towel underneath. Now put this. Look at that, it doesn't move. I love that trick. Okay, look at this. Tell me this isn't the most beautiful challah dough. So what you're looking for when you're making challah, remember, the fingers are kind of the scoopers, and your palms are what you press. So scoop and press, scoop and press. So if it's still sticking, then it needs a little bit more flour. But judge by the amount of stickiness you have to judge how much flour. Just a drop every time. I mean, literally, like a teaspoon. So, and sometimes you just have to kind of fold it over. So I don't want to add too much, but this, I wish I remembered how much flour I put in. Yeah, it was working beautifully. Okay. So keep kneading until you get, the more you knead, by the way, the more glutinous your challah is, which is what you're looking for in bread. So you know how when you're pulling apart challah, or and you get like these strings? That's what you're looking for. So when you're making muffins, you are not looking for that. So you barely mix. I mean, you literally mix until combined and then stop, because you want that crumbly, like a coffee cake. You want that crumbly texture. But when you're making challah, you definitely want that glutinous, delicious, oh, that was too much flour. Okay, so really, I'm just trying to get a little bit of the stickiness. Can you ask Mendel to come here to see if anyone's asking any questions? Here. Look how beautiful. This is what your dough should look like. It doesn't stick to your hands, or if it does, a tiny, tiny drop. And it's just a round ball. Beautiful. So now, when you're making bread or any dough, you want to let it rest. And you want to let it rise. So remember our bowl that we put a little margarine on the ends, we brushed it with margarine? Okay, great. I did that so that it won't stick to my bowl and I will easily be able to take it out. Take your margarine, the melted margarine that we put on the side, and brush, mine melted a little, interesting. And brush the top of your dough with the margarine. There you go. Okay. And now we're going to let it rise. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the warmest place in our kitchen. We're going to take our kitchen towel and give me a sec. I'm just going to, so what I'm doing is I'm just taking a wet hand and I'm sort of just wiping my doughy hand, but you know, obviously it's better if it's a clean hand. Just to make it a little bit wet, just a little bit. And then you cover your dough. Okay, so I'm going to move that to the warmest place in my house, and I'll be right back with, this is So Food Network, I'm going to be right back with my ready-made dough. So at this point, you're done with your dough. You're going to let your dough rise. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to let your dough rise for about an hour and a half. When it doubles in size, it's a little bit of a heavier dough. So it will take a little bit longer to rise because we added more ingredients. We added margarine, that's a little bit heavier than oil. We added soy milk, that's heavier than water. So understand that it's going to take a little bit longer for your dough to rise. So let it rise for an hour and a half. What Martha says is to punch it down then and let it rise for another half hour. After that, bring it over, form it in a braid, and I'll show you how. Brush it, and don't brush it yet. Form it for another, and let it rest on your tray for another half hour. Then brush it very well. So what Martha says is to wait 5 minutes so that the egg absorbs a little bit, then brush it again, then put any of your toppings and stick it in the oven. So let's do that. Okay, give me a sec, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna wash my hands and grab the dough. Thank you for being patient, I'll be right there. You might want to get out a pen and paper so you can take notes so that you know what to do next when your challah dough is ready. Okay. Here we go. Oh, it feels so beautiful. Okay, so here's my bowl with the challah. I mean, beautiful. Really beautiful. So I punched it down already and it came back up. So this has been sitting for quite a long time. Let's take it out and let's start braiding it. But before we do, right now, this is just dough, right? It's not called challah yet. We're going to take off a piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have in mind all of your challah so that you can say the bracha with me now. And then when you make your challah, just take off a little piece, wrap it in aluminum foil, and stick it in your oven or put on your stovetop and let it burn. So what are we doing? In the time of the temple, people would take off their pieces of dough and they would give it to the priests. That was kind of like their salary because they didn't make a salary outside of what the people in the community gave them. And this way, what you were saying when you were making your challah is that you were acknowledging that it literally, every step of getting this dough to become this dough is through God's miracles. Nature is God's miracle enclosed in nature. So, and God does that so that we have to work extra hard to remind ourselves that God is involved in everything we do so that it's our work. We're making the effort. It's not spoon-fed to us because it doesn't mean the same thing if it's spoon-fed, right? Once we do the work, then we feel like we have the connection. So God says, I am hiding in nature. I want you to find me. I want you to show me that you love me so much you're willing to look for me. So God is in the rain, and God is in the sunlight, and God is in the germinated seeds, and God is in the wheat stalks, and God is in the process of forming flour, the winnowing, all of that until it gets to the grounding and the flour. And the idea that yeast rises, sugar is sweet. I mean, who did all of this? God. And so when we get to this point when we're feeling really good about ourselves, I mean, this is a pretty nice dough. I earned it. I worked really hard. 1 second. You know what? God was actually involved with every aspect of this. So this is actually holy. So I'm going to acknowledge it and how do we acknowledge it? By doing an action, by actually doing something. Not just talking about it or feeling it, but actually using our hands, our mouths to acknowledge it and to, right? Action is pretty important. So I took off a piece, and I'm going to say the blessing. And so here's something really special. This is a time, it's called an East Ratzon. It's a special time where you close your eyes, especially women. This is a mitzvah, especially for women. So here's a mitzvah where you close your eyes, you say the blessing, and you close your eyes, and just ask God for anything. It's like I say this all the time. I feel like God has his ear right above my kitchen. And he stops everything, and he's so busy now, right? And he stops everything just to hear what I have to say, right? Only God is able to create a world where everybody is a main character and everyone else is the supporting cast, but we're all main characters in the same world. It's so amazing. So God is stopping and listening to each one of us as if we're the only one. So in general, whenever we ask, first we thank. We always thank God first. Then we ask for others, and then we ask for ourselves. So it's a perfect opportunity. There's so much to be thankful for, and there's so much to ask for. So let's say the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahafrish challah. Thank you, God, for giving us this opportunity of separating challah. And zos challah, this is the challah. This is actually in the Torah, it says take off a piece of challah. And all of a sudden, this becomes challah. It goes from dough to challah. So close your eyes. Let's do a virtual holding hands so we're all connected. Close your eyes and just pray, ask, thank first. And may God accept all our prayers and all our thanks. Amen for all of us. May the power of all of us together doing this, and I know you're not able to do it now, but you were able to say the bracha with me, and you were able to stop and ask and thank and connect. And then when your challah is ready, please take off a piece. You're going to wrap it in aluminum foil, and then you're going to throw it in an empty hot oven or put it on the stovetop until it's burned and inedible. And that's kind of our sacrifice that we give to God in today's day when we don't have the temple in Jerusalem. And it's our way of acknowledging that God is involved in every aspect of our lives and every aspect of the world. Okay, ready? Here's our challah. So what I'm going to do is, Martha Stewart Devine, I know I'm quoting her a lot. I don't usually quote her, but this is her recipe, and I want to give her credit for it. And I'm actually following her directions. So what she does, do you see the dough, Chaim? So what she does is she divides it in half. I'm feeling like every time I make a challah that's too big, the inside is raw and the outside gets super crusty. I like super crusty, but I don't want the inside to be raw. So I'm actually going to divide it into 4 and make 4 smaller challahs. So I'm cutting it. See this gluten? That is gluten. That's what you want to see in a challah dough and not in a muffin or a crumb cake. Okay, so I'm dividing it into 4 because I'm feeling like you can totally make 4 smaller challahs. By the way, challahs freeze beautifully. What you can actually do is par bake any challah that you're not using this week. So do all the steps, put it in the oven, take it out before it starts getting any color. Just when it starts like a light gold, but nothing more than that. So I would say 15 minutes. Take it out, let it come to room temperature, wrap it very well in plastic wrap, then put it in a Ziploc, take out all the air, and then stick it, always take a Sharpie, you should always have a Sharpie in your kitchen, write down what it is and write the date, and then next week take it out in the morning, let it come to room temperature, put the oven on to 375 and bake it for another, 10-15 minutes until it's delicious and your whole kitchen smells amazing. And turn it upside down, tap it, and if it sounds hollow, then you know your challah is ready. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm putting these 3 on the side because I'm going to use those to make, I'm going to repeat this step here. My challah actually is not sticky, so it doesn't need, I mean, I have extra flour on my shirt if anyone needs, but divide the quarter of the dough into 3 equal parts. So you should have 1, 2, 3 equal parts. And then make snakes. And the snakes, the ropes, should be equal in size. Okay. Again, I know we talked about it. It doesn't have, in the past, it doesn't have to be perfect. It actually shouldn't be perfect. It should be rustic and homey looking. If you want perfect, then buy bakery bread. Buy bakery challah. Those come out, I think they're probably used by machine. You want rustic. Okay, so now I'm going to actually move these this way so that I can see them. Okay, so now you have 3 equal ropes. I'm going to lightly attach the top. Don't do it too strong because I'll show you what we're going to do. And then tightly braid, 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 braid. Keep going. Braid, 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 braid. Look how nice that looks. Now, I'm actually going to flip it over, open up the initial end, and just finish. So this way it comes out more even. I mean, how cute is this little challah? It's not going to stay little, by the way. I'm going to take one of my trays with the parchment paper, and I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to give it space. Remember, it expands to almost twice its size, so I want to make sure to give it lots of space. Okay, let's go do one more. And then, anyone who's interested, I have this great challah dip that it's called a parsley dip, and it's seriously delicious. So anyone who's interested, I will show you how to make it. What you need for that, and I wrote it on, I think Rabbi Zalman, thank you very much. I think Rabbi Zalman sent everyone the ingredients for it. You need flat leaf parsley, that's Italian parsley. You need some garlic, some cloves of garlic. You need good mayonnaise, and I always use Hellmann's or Best Foods. I think Hellmann's is in New York and Best Foods is in California. I think so. It's the same thing. But that's the only mayonnaise you should be using. And salt and pepper. Okay, so let's do this again. 3 equal, perfectly imperfect ropes. Lightly join the top together. Tight, 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 tight. All the way till the end. Beautiful. Flip it over. There you go. And you can actually, I think this gets recorded if we press share right away. So you can actually go back after when you're ready to make this and just watch this instructions so that you know how to do it. I mean, hello. Nice job, everyone. Okay, I thank you, God, for helping us with every step of this way. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to cover it with my slightly damp towel, and I'm going to let it sit for another half hour. I'm going to make the parsley dip, and then we'll come and revisit this. So I'm putting this, again, in a warm spot. So my oven is on, so I'm going to put it on my stovetop near my oven so that it poofs. Okay, let's grab my food processor, and hopefully my food processor is really going to behave, or I'm going to remember how to use it, even though I really literally use it probably every day. Let's do a little bit of a cleanup. Hi, you want to get me a big knife? I want to show them how to crush the garlic. I'm going to sort of move this to the side. I'm going to take my towel out. I'm going to move the flour to the side. Okay. Here's my food processor. If you are, now is probably not the time, but God willing, when everything gets back to normal, well, you know, what's the definition of normal? But when everything gets back to what we're more comfortable with, thank you. This is an amazing food processor. Okay, let's get all the ingredients. So I have my parsley. So I have my flat leaf parsley. This is what it looks like. But I actually found in the fridge some of the curly parsley, and this is generally used for decoration. It's not generally used for real eating. But I had some in my fridge, and I really want to be conscious of not wasting and allowing it to go bad, so I'm just going to use it too. It's going to give it a little bit of a nuttier flavor, and that's good. Here's my garlic cloves, and I just will decide as I'm working how many garlic cloves I want to use. Here's my mayo. So I have an open one. I want to use that first. So it's the Best Foods. It has an OU parve. It's an amazing mayonnaise. And here is my salt. Kai, you want to grab my pepper? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to open my food processor. Okay. And it actually goes. No. Does it go this way? Uh-oh. I think I'm going to have the same problem again. Why when I'm on camera do I forget how to use this? There. Okay. Now, what do you need? Oh, pepper. Thank you. Fresh pepper. So I'm going to stick my parsley in. Okay. I got to show you this bowl. My husband loves berries in the morning. So I got this bowl, and it has holes on the bottom so that you can wash the berries and then serve it. Is that not genius? I was so excited. So anyway, here's my bowl. So I used it for the parsley. I washed the parsley, and then I put it in this bowl. Now let's do garlic. So I used about whatever I had in the fridge. So I used about a bunch and a half of the parsley. So I'm going to use, I like my parsley dip really pungent. So I'm going to use a lot of garlic. Here's how to do the garlic. So the garlic is, unless you use peeled, I usually like to use pre-peeled. But it's harder to get now. So, and I'd like to not have to run to the market every time I'm missing one ingredient. So here's the peeled one. I pulled it off a clove. Just bash it with a nice knife. And then, with a nice big knife, that's what I should say, and stick it in. And this way, look how easy it is to just get the peel off. So I'm going to use, I don't know, I'm going to use 3. I think 3 is good. Okay. And then I'm going to use my mayonnaise. Remember I told you about my trusty spatula? How amazing. It just scoops right in and out. It gets into all the deepest, darkest places. Look at this. I'm going to need more mayo. And it's very interesting because I don't generally use mayo, but for the parsley dip I do. Okay. So I would say use about maybe a cup for a bunch. So I use about 1.5 cups. But you're going to have to kind of eyeball it. And you have to decide. Some people like the parsley dip lighter. Some people like it darker. Here's my... I took a teaspoon of salt. Okay. I might need more, so we'll taste it and we'll see. And just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 grams of fresh pepper. Okay. And let's see if I remember how to do this. I literally use this all the time and I can't remember how to do this. you know what? This machine does not like to be on camera. Okay, ready? Start. I'm gonna pulse. No. It's the wrong way. Okay. Now we're gonna let it go. What I look for is for the parsley to get really creamy. I mean, how easy is this recipe? And I literally have people who come just for my parsley dip. It's so easy to make and it's so delicious. Okay, so we put in flatly parsley and I actually added a little bit of the curly leaf parsley. Another name for flat leaf is Italian. So Italian parsley, flat leaf. I like to use organic. Just wash it really well to make sure there are no bugs, because bugs are not kosher. Again, we're making this kosher, we're making this holy, and it didn't take a lot of effort. Just look to make sure there was nothing that was unkosher about it. Okay? Let's check it out. Okay, let's use a little, oh, I have a little fork. So good. I'm just gonna add a little bit more salt. I like it salty. And I'm actually gonna add just a drop more mayonnaise. Guys, this looks beautiful. And let me tell you, with hot, fresh challah, it's really out of this world. So, that's my parsley dip. Put it on the side and then I'm gonna put it in a little mason jar. Let's grab our challah dough. Kaya, what time is it? Don't tell me what time it is so I'm not taking everyone's time. Let's take our challah and let's brush it. $10:20? 10, almost 10:30. Oh, okay. Thank you. Could you ask Mendel to come here so that he can press share? Here's my challah. I didn't let it sit enough, but I'm going to show you how to brush it just so that you know how to do it. It should, but it already, I mean, I feel it. It got lighter. Let's take our challah. Let's take our egg. Remember we talked about we have the egg, one egg yolk, so that it's kind of glistening. The egg yolk, the fat of the egg causes the shine. And then a little bit of water, and sort of just whisk it away. So let's try what she says, just to see why she recommends it. Sorry, my kitchen is a little. Okay, so she says to pour it into a sieve and sort of let it run through. I guess it will catch any of the big pieces or the egginess. So what I'm seeing not go through is the egginess, like that clumpy egginess. I guess she doesn't want that part to come through. Interesting. Okay, I guess that's it. That's very interesting. I'm not sure what it did, but it, okay, I think this is good. Okay. I'm not sure what it did, but now we stay true to the recipe. Okay, the only thing I'm going to do that's not true to the recipe is I'm going to actually add a little bit of honey to the glaze. I feel like it's so, let me move this away. I feel like it's so good when the top of the challah gives off a little bit of sweetness. So let's just add a little, oh, that was, whatever. More honey, more sweetness. We can all use more sweetness and more honey in our lives, right? So here you go. Okay. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna brush this. So I have to, you see I have different sizes. It doesn't matter if you use the bigger one or the smaller one, but here is a paintbrush, another size paintbrush. So like the paintbrushes in the hardware stores are maybe 99 cents, and the brushes in any of the kitchen specialty markets are more. So you do the math, decide what you want to do. It's fine either way, but these work beautifully. Look how gorgeous. They're sparkly and shiny and glistening. So now, what she says to do, which I'm not going to do now for just showing sake, is what she says to do is let it sit for about 5 minutes just to allow the egg to absorb a little bit. And then she says to just grab the brush and brush it again. And then put any toppings you want. So now's the perfect time to put the toppings. I'm going to use sesame seeds because that's what I really like. So just a little bit of the roasted sesame seeds. I can smell it. It's so delicious. And I'm also going to use, just because I never made this recipe before, so I don't know how much salt there is on it. So I'm actually going to use a little bit of the Maldon salt so that if it doesn't have enough, it will get the burst of salty flavor. So the Maldon salt, you probably can't see it from the camera, I'm not sure, but it's very flaky. And so when you use it, you take a pinch, you lift it high above the food so this way it distributes evenly, and you kind of crush it a little bit. Make sure when you're salting or adding pepper, you do it high above so that it distributes evenly. And here you have your challah. I'm going to stick it in the oven, my preheated oven, 375, for about 20 minutes. And here's something interesting that she says. You know, sometimes when you make challah and it gets bigger, and in between the crevices, it expands, and because there's no egg on it, it's not shiny. So there are like shiny parts on the challah, and there are parts that are kind of pale and don't get a lot of color. So what she says is to take out the tray. You don't even have to take it out. Just open the oven. Just realize that you're changing the temperature a little bit. But I think that's okay with the challah. So you open the oven, pull out the tray, and quickly brush more of the egg mixture in between the corners, and you could actually even rebrush the whole challah, but make sure to get in between the braid connections. And then put it back in the oven for about 15 minutes. When you're making challah, you can rest assured that 20 minutes, everything's going to be fine. But after that, depending on your oven, you're going to kind of want to hang around your oven to make sure that you don't overbake the challah. So you'll take it out. What you do is you'll turn it over a little bit and you'll tap with your knuckles the bottom of the challah. And if it sounds hollow, then it's ready. If it sounds like it's not as hollow, it doesn't have that hollow echoey sound, let it go in for a little bit longer. If you see, especially since I added honey, when you add honey, it tends to color the top of the challah much quicker because sugar burns much quicker than everything else. So if I see that it's starting to get dark, I'll just grab a piece of aluminum foil, shiny side up. I'll just cover the challah loosely, just so that the challah doesn't burn on the top. And then this way it will allow time for the challah to get ready inside. Then I'll take it out, and then I will put it on a cooling rack and let it come to room temperature, and then I'll dip it into parsley dip. I'll say the hamotzi lacha min haaretz, and I'll enjoy. Thank you very much for spending your morning with me. I miss everyone terribly. This is just such an interesting time. I'm trying to be very introspective, and I'm trying to keep my eyes open and just learn valuable lessons every step of the way, because if we are in this position, that means we need to be in this position, and that means it's an opportunity for a tremendous amount of learning and growth. And at the end of this quarantine, whenever it will be, God willing, sooner rather than later, I want to be a different person. I want to be a better person. I want to be a smarter person. I want to be a person that's more compassionate and more kind and more open to experiences. I don't want to be the same person that I came into the quarantine as. So God willing, for all of us, we should continue to grow and learn and just grasp and keep our eyes open and just not miss any of the valuable life lessons and hellos that God sends along the way. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Light Shabbos candles. I think it's like, look on jccmb.com. I think it's like 710 or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure. Please look on jccmb.com to get the exact time of candle lighting. Let's light candles together. Women, we have such power. We have such strength. We're going to light up this world and change it forever.